Hello and welcome to episode number 62 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And we are coming at you with our second ever emergency podcast. Blare the siren, lock your doors. It is an emergency out here.
Yeah, I feel like there's been this giant bubble of trades that we've all been discussing, and we know that the wave's about to come, and the wave has finally started, thanks to you and Zane. Before we get into that, there were a few trades that did go down last week, mostly involving pick swaps and one Ryan Pepio being traded. We're going to discuss those more in the draft recap episode because there's more affect the draft. Today we're going to focus on the blockbuster that went down. So I'll start here by announcing the trade here, and I'll let you weigh in since it was your deal. The Liam Hendriks experience has agreed to trade outfielder Trent Grisham and outfielder Joey Gallo to the executive batting order for third baseman Anthony Rendon, outfielder Kyle Lewis, Cam's 2023 second round pick, and Eric's 2024 second round pick. What was your thought process behind this trade, Cam?
Yeah, so this was, first of all, my biggest blockbuster in probably 2+ years. And the reason we're doing this, first of all, as an emergency podcast, whereas this deal probably we could have had it in a regular episode. But that reason is we are recording a new episode tonight, in which we are going to want to devote the entire episode to the topic. It's going to be a lot of fun. So basically, we wanted to get this out with the following week being the draft. We really want to be able to devote a lot of time to this trade. So here we are. And yeah, as for this trade, I had been in talks with Zane for probably a month and a half on some sort of deal involving Trent Grisham and Joe Musgrove. And at one point, the deal kind of evolved into Trent Grisham, Joey Gallo for Kyle Lewis, Joe Musgrove, and a couple second rounders. And then Zane kind of got cold feet on that. And we stopped talking about this right around the new year. And then with word of Rendon being on the block, I kind of got interested again. I chatted Zane this afternoon. He got back to me pretty quickly since he's kind of home with Jenna having COVID. And this deal came together really quickly. We just kind of slotted Rendon into the Musgrove slot, which I would probably rather have Rendon than Musgrove anyway. And we just kind of waited for the deal to work. Zane chatted Max. Max says he was hesitant to trade Rendon since he was one of the original guys on their team. Then I kind of said, well, Gallo's one of the original guys on my team. Let's kind of, I guess, start a new era for both our teams. He was on board with that logic. And we just kind of pushed the trade. It was very, very simple trade negotiations, I think, because it was kind of the buildup of a lot of previous smaller deals that we had kind of in our brains.
Yeah. Oh boy, this one was tough. I think I had a different reaction once I saw it as to like what I have now after kind of looking at the numbers a little bit. I think Rendon's a little bit of a risk. Let's start there. I mean, he is coming off a bit of a down year. It was marred by injuries. He only had 6 homers and a 329 OBP in 58 games, which is far below his numbers from previous years. Even battling injuries a bit last year, he was still able to post a 153 WRC plus in a shortened season with more walks and strikeouts. Both of us had him in our top 10 when we did the top 10 MLB players podcast episode last offseason. But he is turning 32. He has had a couple injuries that have left him banged up over the years, but like nothing that's like really robbed him of too many plate appearances. I just wonder how much more of his prime that you're buying. If you think he's aging well, I don't really have an issue with this. But there is a risk that maybe you're buying 2 or 3 more prime years. I do like the fact that he gets on base a lot, and I think that is probably going to help him age a little gracefully, but I also don't know if that necessarily gives him the highest ceiling if the power goes away at that point. But
yeah, no, I've made no secret of always having been a big fan of Anthony Rendon. I wrote an article about him for M-SABR, and I think that his numbers were kind of this past year were they were worse, but I think is mostly due to both BABIP and injury. But that being said, there is very much the risk that he has a David Wright-esque end of his career, and he's just kind of done. Or he kind of slumps. He keeps getting injured, so that's certainly a concern, but one that I'm comfortable with.
I guess, like, how many years of his prime do you think you're buying with this deal?
Yeah, probably. He's what, 31?
He'll be 32 in June. So yeah.
Okay, he'll be 32 in June. So I think I got 3 to 4 more prime years out of him.
I gotcha. Let's turn to Kyle Lewis, and I'll turn to the other side of this deal. Kyle Lewis is a tricky one. Obviously the 2020 numbers were really nice. 2021 was kind of like Rendon. He was banged up. The numbers were all right when he was healthy, but like it wasn't maybe anything special. The 392 slugging percentage, a 333 OBP is nothing really to write home about. The walk rate did decline, but the K rate did decline, so I like that. He's going to be 26. He comes with a lot of injury risk, and it's not like Rendon, where like Rendon had the injury this year, and then it's like, you know what, if he's healthy next year, he could be fine. Like Kyle Lewis, dating back to his days in the minors, has just had like a lot of injury risk. And that is kind of a crowded outfield mix there with like Haniger and Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenic. I think the playing time will be there for him. I don't know what level of upside he necessarily has. I could see him being a solid asset, but I don't know if he's ever going to get to the level that I think like Rendon, Grisham, and Gallo can. I think he's definitely the 4th best player in this deal. Grisham is a guy I really like, and he was fantastic in 2020. And it looked like he was just repeating that to start 2021, and then he kind of fell off. It's kind of unclear why. I know he did suffer an injury during the year, and I wonder if that kind of lingered a bit. I know the Padres offense just kind of fell off a cliff, and I wonder if, he was just kind of part of that. But, if he is going to lead off for a really good Padres team, which he did, most of his plate appearances last year did come off at a leadoff spot. In theory, he should score a lot of runs. In theory, that should give him some opportunity to steal bases. And if he's able to stay healthy and kind of bounce back a bit, I don't see why he couldn't be a 2020 guy with like a 350 OBP, he was more on pace to do that in 2020. I mean, he was on pace maybe to be more like 25 actually in 2020. And he's only 25 years old. I think you can make the argument that he's the most valuable piece in this deal. And I think you could also make that argument about Joey Gallo. Now, I've, made it kind of clear that Joey Gallo is not somebody I like as much just because, like, the K rates are so high, but he does get on base, 351 OBP, 38 homers this year, 6 stolen bases. That's really great. He's pretty solid in an OBP league, more so than an average league. I guess my problem is, though, is like there's only been 2 years in his career where he's had an OBP higher than 333, and that was 2019 and 70 games with a very inflated BABIP and almost a 40% K rate, and then this past year. What scares me is that he ends up kind of being closer to like a 330 OBP guy with like 35 home runs, which isn't bad, but like I just, without him learning how to make more contact and not striking out enough, I just like, I don't know how much I really trust him. I mean, that being said, he's only 28. He's obviously a very good player. I'm not going to detract anything away from him there, but I don't think I'm as high on Joey Gallo as you or Zane are. I really don't know who to pick as the winner here. I mean, when I first saw the trade, I thought it was Zane. When Jake chatted me, he said it was very clearly Zane, and it's not even close.
Well, Jake is very high on Gallo.
He is. So what he said was he ranked the pieces in this trade: Gallo, then Grisham, and then the other side combined.
Really? So he does not like Rendon. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think you and I are both higher on Rendon than he is. I think Rendon has a few solid years left.
I think this year was an outlier for Rendon. I can certainly understand the risk in him with the injury, but I think he's the best player in the deal.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think he's the best player in the deal by a fair amount.
I think he took on the two riskiest players in this deal.
Mm-hmm, that's fair.
But I also think that the upside with Rendon is higher than the other players. And then the question is just will Rendon hit that upside again, and for how long will he? And I also think the secondary question is Grisham and Gallo, how are they going to perform?
I'm definitely banking on a bounce back from both my pieces that I acquired. Kyle Lewis, I've been kind of, the more I look into it, the more confident I am in him. He hit the ball better this past year than he did in his first season, his rookie of the year season. The BABIP was quite a bit lower once again. So I'm confident he can bounce back. I think it is a crowded outfield, certainly, but I think he'll find a way to fit in there. Certainly got a better chance of making it than Jake Fraley, for instance.
Jake Fraley, 2022 AL MVP, Jake Fraley to you, my friend.
I also think, I think the deal can be a win-win for both sides. I have outfielders coming out my ass. I think getting rid of these two guys for a third baseman, with Vlad losing third base eligibility, having a top tier third baseman is something I really want on my team. And I still have a fairly crowded outfield with Lewis coming back. It is definitely worth noting that I'm banking on bounce backs or breakouts from three of my outfielders: Adele, Kelenic, and Lewis. But I also think Grisham lost a lot of value down the stretch, and not a lot of people maybe realized it because he was kind of in the midst of a lot of Padres players who slumped down the stretch. He does have the stolen base upside, but then again, so does Kyle Lewis. And I think, I don't know, I've shopped Grisham around quite a bit. There hasn't been a ton of interest in him. I think he was always kind of the guy I was going to move this offseason just because I needed to decrease in terms of one outfielder no matter what. And he was the one who, I guess, I don't know. He's the one I think I could get the most value for without being one of my top two guys. The most value for while being someone I could see myself trading. And then as for Joey Gallo, I think we've seen his ceiling. He was tough to part with, certainly. And especially tough to part with to a team that isn't Jake, because we know how much he likes him. But I don't know. We'll see how Yankee Stadium treats him. We'll see how Yankee fans treat him. And I think he's certainly going to have that power. If he can keep his walk rate up, then he'll be valuable in an OBP league. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have too many bad things to say about Gallo. He's just kind of a necessary player I had to get rid of.
Yeah, let's talk about these team fits. Actually, I think you started talking about this with your team. I'll get back to that, but let's talk about the fit for Zane's team. I think Zane had a ton of infielders. I know he was talking about that with me earlier today. He's like, his outfielders are a little bit of a question mark. Um, but I think with that infield depth, kind of converting some of it into outfield depth makes it a lot better. And suddenly it was like Betts, Gallo, Grisham, Ozuna, if the Braves want him back and he's healthy, and like Akil Baddoo, like in theory, should be a pretty solid group of outfielders. Maybe some question marks there, but a pretty solid group of outfielders. I don't think he loses a ton on the infield with having Mondesi play third, and LeMahieu there as well. Not losing to Tummy. Rendon's obviously a very good player, but like depth wise, he still has the depth to kind of overcome trading away Rendon. And I think on your side, I think it's a little more interesting because like what I'm assuming you're doing is now instead of viewing Chris Bryant as more of one of your top third base options, I'm guessing you're viewing him more in that outfield mix because you have to replace Grisham and Gallo. So now you're looking more like Soto, Judge, Bryan, Kelenic, Adele,
And Lewis.
Pollock, and Hader the outfield, or Bader.
Right. Yeah, I think the good thing about Bryant is he can fill in both places. If Bohm doesn't bounce back, I could see Bryant being more of a third baseman, corner infielder. If he does, and say Joe Adele never breaks out, then he'd be more of an outfielder. It really just kind of depends on how the pieces fall, and I like him because he's got the flexibility to be both for me.
I agree. Do you think this makes it more likely you trade Bohm, or do you think that this is probably just a neutral kind of move in terms of your likelihood for moving him?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure if I have an answer to it. I think probably, right, since now I have a solid third baseman. So I would say it probably makes it more likely, but you never know. I know a couple teams have been interested in Bohm, but yeah, I mean, I feel a lot more solid in my group of third basemen now.
I think you definitely should. I will say with third base kind of being a thin position overall, getting somebody who has a top 5 third base upside and who has shown it, as recent as 2020, could really be a huge move for you, given that, some of us are looking at like Jonathan VR and Gio Urshela. And
yeah, let's talk about position scarcity because really, I agree. Third base is thin. Outfield is so deep, and I think you're more likely to find, like, for example, 2 of the top 8 outfielders or so this past year were free agents coming into the season: Brian Reynolds and Cedric Mullins. So
see, I disagree though, because I think outfield is thinner than you think because we do have to fill 50 outfield spots, and I don't know how many real viable outfielders you would trust starting with a lot more of the platoons these days. I think there's a decent amount, but not maybe as much as you think.
Maybe. I think there are a lot more. I think there are a lot more guys out there with upside. And when we were looking at who Anthony would add when Kyle Seager retired, we did not come across a lot of names we liked.
No, that's true.
In free agency right now, Jeff McNeil's outfield eligible. Jock Peterson's outfield eligible. Maybe
none of those players excite me.
I mean, they excite me more than Joey Wendell.
Fair. I mean, I think I don't think it's an either or. I agree with you that the base is more thin than outfield, but I disagree with your characterization that outfield is deep because I think outfield is similarly thin. I think the deep positions right now are first, second, short, and catcher. And
that's fair. I just think there's more breakout potential for the next Cedric Mullins or Brian Reynolds to come from the outfield. Maybe it's Clint Frazier next year. Maybe it's
I think there's more
Nixon's
potential
out.
because you're dealing with a bigger pool of players. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But like, I also feel like now more than ever, kind of stacking that outfield depth is important, just because I think the position's kind of thin.
That's true. And
Relative
I
to
guess,
previous
but
years.
to my earlier point, I have that outfield depth already.
You do, which is why trading Grisham and Gallo doesn't hurt that outfield depth the same way that trading Rendon doesn't necessarily hurt Evio's infield depth, and specifically his third base depth, because he does already have a couple solid players there who can fill in. So I think from a need perspective, this works out for both of you. I think it kind of fills some holes on both of your teams. I do think you're taking on a little bit more of a question mark in Rendon and Lewis, and Zane is taking on but we'll see. This is one of those trades where it's hard to really assign a winner to right now, because there's just like so many question marks about all the players, and you just really don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I think that completely sums up the deal.
Pretty
in
much.
my mind too. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this for about 20 minutes. Thankfully, it's the only trade we had to talk about, so I feel like we broke it down a little more. Is there anything else you want to do before we sign off on our second ever emergency podcast?
Yeah, so I know I had a team reach out to me and say that they're interested in Kyle Lewis already. So that's kind of fun. We'll see if that goes anywhere. You said
there are a lot of big offers coming out. In fact, just 3 minutes ago, I got wind of like an offer that like another one of those, I would drop everything and do an emergency podcast for, like times 10 of this trade that we just announced.
Interesting.
And I actually think it's going to happen.
Well, we shall see. Man, it's fun to make a big trade. I told Zane, my heart is pounding as I was getting ready to submit it. It's a lot of fun. It's scary. It's scary to see what the reaction is going to be. There wasn't much instant reaction to this trade, which is kind of interesting. You said Jake chatted you. Did anyone else chat you?
Nobody else chatted me. I'm sure some people are getting off of work now and thinking about it. Alex texted me and asked what I thought about the trade, but I haven't responded because we started recording the podcast then.
Well, let me know off air what he thinks.
Yeah, no, I'll let you know once he weighs in.
But yeah, no, if that's all we had to talk about, then thank you for listening. Alex needs to pick in the Gallardo Cup draft.
He does.
But it's been 8 minutes. I'm not gonna bump it or anything, but But yeah, no, this was a fun one. I think, I guess to sum it up, this fills needs on both sides, and my side has the higher risk and the higher upside.
I agree.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you again for listening. And we're so bad at doing outros.
Yeah.
But until next time, take care of yourself.
Yes, take care of yourself. Cam, I'll see you in like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, see you for that. Excited for that episode.
All right.
I think we have an emergency. I think we have an emergency. If you thought I'd leave, then you were wrong, 'cause I won't stop holding on. So are you listening? So are you watching me? If you thought I'd leave, then you were wrong, 'cause I won't stop holding on. This is an emergency. So are you listening?
This podcast is good.